Oh, goodness. All right, everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Shop and Chivalry podcast. Hi. My guest today.
Aloha.
Aloha. Lexi Williams, well, welcome. Welcome here. And, we've been working on getting this together for a while. I found you off of, I think you're speaking at the Chamber of Commerce, you're a speaker there recently. And then, I don't know if you know Katie Weldon. Do you know Katie?
Yep, Katie sounds familiar.
Yep, so I got in touch with her regarding you because, I read that you were an Air Force veteran, you're from the Gulf Coast, you started this very culturally appropriate clothing company that is international actually, with its connections, and I thought, we got to have a conversation. So, as we talked, and we'll find out here shortly, we got a lot in common. We're practically cousins.
Yes, we are. We got different daddies, though.
Yeah. But yeah, so Lexi, who are you?
Well, Lexi is 37. I'm retired, Air Force, like you just mentioned. I'm from Gulfport.
Okay.
Turnkey, to be exact.
All right.
The Forest Heights area. I graduated from Harrison Central in 2002. And the funny story is, I was in Army, JROTC. And the only reason why I didn't go into the Army is because we were preparing for a drill show. And my major yelled at me. He made me cry. And I was like, you're not even in the real Army no more. So I'm like, I'm not going into the Army. So I enlisted into the Air Force as an air traffic controller.
Okay, that's our first connection, right? There you go.
And I eventually cross-trained into human resources.
Okay, all right. And then you did that. You're good. Don't worry about it. So you did that for 17 years?
17 years, 6 months, 4 days, 23 hours, and 8 seconds. But I wasn't counting.
No, there's no way you could have been. There's no way you could have been.
Shoot.
Well, so where did that journey take you?
So I was originally stationed here at Keesler. Tech school was here, and I joined the Air Force to get away from Mississippi. And God was like, nope.
Not yet.
Yeah, we're going to keep you right here.
Yeah, not yet.
So I was stationed at Keesler Tower. And after Katrina, while we were evacuated, I found out I had orders to South Korea. Okay. So I went from Korea to Langley.
Okay, Virginia.
In Virginia.
Yeah.
Back to Korea, South Korea.
Okay.
And then Hawaii. That's how you're supposed to say it. Hawaii,
okay.
And then here. I came back home.
Gotcha. Yeah, I flew out when I was in Travis. We flew out through the Pacific a lot. Spent a lot of time in Waikiki Beach at the Outrigger Hotel.
Oh, y'all got money.
Well, that's the Air Force. They spend money on you out there. But and of course, being a part of air crew, that was just that was just the way of it. But
you're a low master.
I used to be a crew chief, a mechanic on C5, C17, so we went out there quite a bit. I got tired of, dragging my knuckles outside, so I, decided to do ATC. So, yeah. Now I teach it at the schoolhouse.
You sure do.
Yep. Sure enough.
Sure do.
So let me ask you this. So you've got a clothing company.
I do.
Okay. Tell us about that.
Well, Aloha Glamour was started in, I want to say 2017.
Okay.
I started it for my mental health, actually.
Interesting.
So in 2015, while I was stationed in Hawaii, my daughter, she was born and she died while I was stationed there in November. December, my divorce was final. In January, I PCS from Hawaii to Mississippi. So I suffered 3 different type of losses back to back.
Okay.
And when I PCS'd here, it was predominantly civilian because I was working at the 81st Tris, which is like right across from you.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of civilians. I didn't have much military leadership. And to them, all they saw was a tech sergeant who had been in for 12 years, just sad, not talking, and crying at her desk.
With no understanding of the underlying...
No understanding. Yeah. So they didn't see what happened. They got the aftermath. They got the depressed. I don't even want to be here.
Unmotivated kind of deal.
Yes.
Yeah. And probably an organization that's in constant motion.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the Air Force didn't know how to deal with me.
Mm-hmm.
Turn it off.
No, you're good. Well, I think it's tough for anybody to kind of put themselves in another person's shoes, dealing with any type of loss, much less three life-changing losses that happen in sequence.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's a tough thing. I mean, how it's kind of difficult to know where to begin on that. How do you cope with a single loss, much less three?
I had no choice because after our PCS, I still had little kids. They needed to be enrolled in school. I had to find us some place to live. So here I was needing to grieve, but I wasn't allowed to grieve. So I had to be creative in that grieving process.
Why do you say you weren't allowed to grieve?
Well, in the Black community, we don't talk about loss. We don't talk about anything really. If it's affecting your mental health, we don't talk about it. We're told to be seen and not heard, right? So when I lost my daughter, I felt like I didn't have anybody to talk about. To talk to. I couldn't talk to the Air Force. I couldn't talk to my mom. My mom was a preacher, so her thing was, pray about it. But like, what happens after you pray so much, right? So I couldn't talk to my mom, and I just felt like I was all alone. And I remembered 3 weeks after I lost Lauren, it was my birthday weekend actually, so I couldn't even celebrate my birthday because I was so sad. But my friend, her name was Ebony, she took me to the Hawaiian flea market. And when we went to the flea market, there were these pua skirts. In Hawaii, they use pua skirts for hula dances and for like ceremonial type events. But it had 5 elastic waistbands, and I remember putting it on, and I no longer felt like I looked pregnant because I was 7 months pregnant when I experienced the child loss. I felt like I no longer looked pregnant. The colors, they were so vibrant, and it was like I instantaneously felt alive again when I put that skirt on.
So when I hear that, I've had some friends that have suffered through a miscarriage, and I do try to understand what they go through because I love them, I care about them. That is something, no matter how well somebody explains to me, no matter how receptive, no matter how much I try to learn about it, it's not possible to know how you felt in that for a lot of reasons. But when my goddaughter was born, I noticed a bag that was hooked up to an IV, and it had oxytocin in it. And so I didn't realize this, but you're given oxytocin during pregnancy, and oxytocin is a chemical released when it's called the love hormone. When you're intimate with people, it reinforces bonds. What it does during pregnancy, though, is it dulls the memory of pain during childbirth, right? And that's why they think that women that go through this pain of childbirth, they don't remember it as painful because the oxytocin modifies the memory, which is interesting. But also oxytocin helps your body like repair cognitively, physiologically, numbs pain, all that sorts of thing. And what I think of when you suffer a child loss, right, is that maybe some of that depression might be because your body didn't get a chance to go through the recovery process with oxytocin because the child was lost. No. I
don't think that. No.
Because you did go through a short or a period of depression, and it was something about, and depression is often considered a dark place, and then something about these vibrant colors attracted you, brought you into a place of light.
Right.
Yeah,
and you talked about not you can't imagine. A lot of people can't imagine it, and how I tried to explain it to those who still had kids living, because they always say, well, at least you still have kids, and think about the ones that you do have, and everything happens for a reason, to try to not really bring light to the situation, but so they can understand more. I say, well, think about all your kids that you have now and tell me which one you can live without. And they're just like,
yeah.
So it happened out of nowhere. I was actually, I had my glucose test that morning.
Okay.
And I had been feeling really, really bad after the glucose test. And because I worked in IPR, we deployed a lot of people out of PACAF. And I was sitting at the desk and my head was on the desk. I just felt like I felt a hot mess. And I'm sure I looked a hot mess because one of my customers was like, oh my gosh, you look like death. And I was like, I feel like it. And as soon as I stood up to walk to the bathroom, my stomach just dropped. And in thinking about the sequence of events, that was the exact moment when she died. And my troop, Keisha, me and her, we were 1 month apart from each other. And she looked at me and she was like, you okay? I said, well, something don't feel right. And I had a temperature of like 103, 105 for a couple of hours. So my supervisor ended up sending me home and I went to sleep. Long story short, I hadn't felt her move since that drop. And I called the ER. I had called the ER before I left. And I said, hey, I'm leaking fluid. And they're like, oh, that's normal. And I said, okay. So I went home and I went to sleep. But I deal with a lot of guilt because I feel like my motherly instinct should have kicked in. Like, no, something's not right. I should have went to the hospital.
But you have no way of knowing. I mean, all you can do is kind of rely on the medical professionals.
Medical advice.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, so based off that medical advice, I did not go in and, but at that point, she was gone. But what was so traumatizing to me was when the doctor came in. Okay, so let me start over. When I went into the ER, I walked in, I said, I have a fever of 103. I haven't felt my baby move since this morning. This was at Tripler. They gave me a sample cup. They said, go pee in this cup and come back. So I went, peed in the cup, and then they sat me in the waiting room for 30 minutes after I had told them I hadn't felt my baby move. 30 minutes later, a nurse comes to get me. She puts me in a room. Another 30 minutes goes by before they even come in and try to find my baby's heartbeat. So the first lady came in, she tried to find the heartbeat, but I could tell she couldn't find it, and she didn't say anything, she just left. So the second face that I saw was a male nurse, and he had the ultrasound monitor, but he had it faced away from me. And, he was trying to find a heartbeat, but he couldn't. He said, I'll be right back. And the next face that I saw at this point, I was like, okay, something ain't right. So this was the doctor that was in charge for that night. And she came in. The monitor still wasn't facing me, and she was trying to find it. She couldn't find it. So then she turned the screen around and was like, this is your baby, and this is where her heart should be beating, and there's no heartbeat. It was like as soon as she said that, I immediately just, of course, bust out crying. And she said, but I have to go get another specialist, to verify. So as soon as she left, I'm on the floor on my knees just crying and praying. I don't know what I'm crying and praying for. I'm trying to bargain with God, like, just why? Please bring my baby back. But that didn't happen. So when the specialist came in, she was like, well, you can either deliver her now or we're going to send you home for you to come back. And I looked at her and I said, well, you can't send me home because I have a fever. And she said, oh, well, that changes things. So then they admitted me into the hospital. But at this point, I'm shaking like so bad because I had been shivering all day. Like, it was hard for me to control my mouth. It was uncontrollable, and it was to the point where my jaws were hurting, my body was hurting because I couldn't control my shivering. I got my epidural. My best friend Ebony and my troop Keisha came. Keisha's crying, Ebony crying, I'm crying, and I'm shaking. And then there was like this smell. I said, Keisha, did you fart? because you know she's pregnant. I'm not judging. She was like, no, I thought that was you. I said, well, Ebony, check under the covers to make sure I didn't boo-boo on myself, because I can no longer feel my legs because I got an epidural. I said, to make sure, you know, because the doctor said she was going to come back in an hour for me to push so I could deliver my baby. I had to deliver her because she was so big. So I said, Ebony, make sure I didn't boo-boo on myself, because that's going to be embarrassing, right? So she lifts the cover. She puts it back down. She said, I'll be right back. So she goes to get the nurse and the doctor. The doctor comes in, pulls the cover up, and she was like, you didn't feel yourself deliver your baby? I was like, no. So as I was shivering, like my body literally rejected my child and pushed her out, and it smelled like, I don't know if that's what a dead body smelled like, but it was horrible. So I had to cut the umbilical cord, and there's this great program in Hickam. When you suffer a child loss, there's some volunteers that come in. They take pictures of like your moments with your baby, and you know, to give it to you. But because the infection was taking over me, I couldn't really spend time with Lauren. Her name is Lauren Taylor. I couldn't spend time with Lauren because they were trying to get me under control. I guess my levels were all out of whack. And I think I went into a coma. Not long, but I remember them taking me to ICU for a few hours. But what hurt the most was after I got out of ICU, they put me on the labor and delivery floor right by the nursing station. And here I am, this mother who had just suffered a child loss, and all I can hear is babies crying around me. And I'm just like, that's all I wanted to hear was my baby cry, and I couldn't. So they tried to give me anxiety meds. Like, my anxiety was super high to where the meds didn't even work, right? So I didn't sleep. Well, by the third day, I told the nurse, I said, look, y'all need to move me from here. Either move me to another floor or move me, you know, to where I can't hear these babies crying. And they ended up moving me to the front of labor and delivery. And I didn't sleep for 5 days. I was in the hospital from the 5th until the 10th of November. So it's like every year between October is National Child Loss and Miscarriage Month. So I'm already going through it in October, and then her birthday is the beginning of November. So it's like I would go through this cycle of being depressed from October into the beginning of the year, because after her birthday is my birthday, then the holidays, and then the first of the year. But yeah, that was my that was that.
I feel guilty asking you to tell that.
I don't feel guilty,
because I can see it.
I feel,
I mean, it affected me.
Yeah. It because we don't talk about it, not just me, but in sharing my story, I have a lot of women, they contact me and say, you know, because of your story, you know, I feel I can share with you that I've lost 2 children. I've even had this lady tell me that she lost 9 and she's never told anybody. But because I shared my story, she felt that she could relate to me, even though, you know, it's kind of sad that that's the way that we relate, but she felt comfortable enough to tell me her story. And I feel like if I can provide that to women, then I'm happy, because I know what it felt like. I felt alone. Like, I felt like there's, like, nobody understands what we go through. And you know, in the military, they always talk about suicide and suicide awareness. As soon as I PCS to Keesler, they sent me to a suicide awareness training because it's mandatory for the whole squadron. And one of the scenarios was this lady lost her baby. And this is not even 3 months after I lost my daughter, that I'm having to sit in this room, and it got to the point I said, I can't do this. So I ended up leaving. Like, my supervisor, she was a civilian, so I was her first military troop, I think. And she didn't know, like, what to do. So I ended up leaving that training. But as long as I can provide an outlet for other women, you know, to be able to share their story, because I understand what it feels like to want to die, not because you don't want to be here, but it's to stop the pain, because the pain is so much. Like, it's so hard. And then if you have children that are, you know, that are still living, like, we have to show up for them. So we can't, you know, just sit and sulk and grieve.
Well, it's amazing that you're willing to put yourself through that, you know, to help other people. Is it difficult for you to kind of sit through and listen to other people's pain? Does it help you cope with yours?
Yeah, it helps me cope. I try to provide a sisterhood. So 2 years ago, I started this child loss miscarriage awareness walk. It's not official. Mm-hmm. It's unofficial. I just do a Facebook event, say, hey, I'm meeting at Jones Park. It's every third Saturday in October. And the first time I did the walk, it was me, my kids, and one other person. So the following year, there were 6 people. And then last year, we had about 12, 13 people there. So it's growing, and we talk about our babies, because a lot of times when you lose a child, nobody wants to talk about the child because they don't want you to be sad or depressed, when a lot of times we want y'all to acknowledge that our baby was here, like, she meant something. And in starting Aloha Glamour, it was very important for me to merge the African culture and the Hawaiian cultures together, because she was born in Hawaii, and I felt like she was my Afrowaiian princess.
Yeah, I've heard you mention that. I love that.
Yeah, so I kind of made up trademark pending. So I made up that word Afrowaiian, because with every order that goes out, I also put a card in there that explains my story, to explain Aloha Glamour, because a lot of people be like, Aloha Glamour? Girl, you black, you from Mississippi, what you know about Aloha? So then when I explain the story, they're like, oh, okay, yeah. But it was important for me to include those elements, because I want people to say Lauren's name. I want people to know Lauren Taylor was here, and she meant so much to me and my struggle and my story. And it's unfortunate that, you know, she had to be the sacrifice in order for me to step into my purpose. I feel like there are people out here waiting to hear my story so they can get through whatever it is that they're going through.
You know, it's interesting. You've mentioned this recurring theme of continuing to call Lauren's name and talk about your child, and you know, some people maybe might think that's not a good idea, but I'm on your side with this. I had the unfortunate opportunity to speak at a couple funerals. One of the things I always talk about, yeah, I hope I can get through this, is Genesis, in the book of Genesis. You know, it's the first book of the Bible, and when God is creating everything, he creates something, and then he names it, right? He created the dry area between the oceans, the land, the vastness above the sky, the period of light, the day, the period of night, or the period of darkness, the night. And so the message I say is, it's as if a divine being is saying that in order for something to exist, it must be called into existence. And so by continuing to speak the name, tell the story, talk about the individual, you call them, sorry.
It's okay.
You call them back into existence.
You do. And that's that's important, you know, to remember those memories, because I do believe in signs. It's when Lauren died, the first nurse that walked into my room, her name was Lauren. And that was like a sign for me, like she's still here. And my grandfather had died like 2 years before that. And I always tell the dead people in my life, look, if you gonna come back in my dream, because I can't handle seeing you in form. So he comes to me in my dream, and I remember this dream so vividly. He says, well, I see him and I say, hey, Papa, have you seen Lauren? And he was like, Lauren, yeah, they just called her name. So I feel like when they, you know, die, they announce to the heavens, Lauren is here. He was like, yeah, they just called her name. And I was like, well, you know, make sure you go get her. And he was like, don't worry about her. I'm going to take care of her. And right after, I want to say like the first year, I would just be sitting there, and then I'll just hear like a baby laugh. And I got her cremated because I didn't want to leave her in Hawaii. So I feel like maybe I haven't fully grieved because I still have her urn. And you know, for Americans, most Americans, the funeral is like the end. Like we know they're gone, because the casket goes in the ground in a tombstone. But because she doesn't have like a tombstone, because she isn't buried, I don't know if that's the reason why I haven't really grieved like I should, because she's in my office. There are times when I walk in and I actually have a conversation. I know she can't hear me, but to have that conversation and know that she's so close is important.
Well, you mentioned that she doesn't have a, you know, maybe a place where you can, you know, finalize that grieving process. But you mentioned that this was an exercise in maintaining your mental health, right?
Right.
So she does have a place on this earth, and in fact, that presence that she has is growing through your business. Yes.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
Okay.
Let's talk about, first of all, I want to tell you. Lexi came in, gave me some gifts here, gave me this pretty fly watch.
Okay.
Right. And I told her, so when we met outside, I was like, now, how are you going to come here? I'm giving you my, you know, the best color I got, you know, and you're going to upstage me like that.
Well, our motto is live your life in color, because there was a period where all I saw was black and white. And as women, as people, we use the way we dress or the way we feel, we project that in our clothing 100%. A lot. So if our motto is live your life in color and create a story in every piece that you wear from Aloha Glamour, of course, you know I was going to have to show up glamorous.
There you go. That's
Absolutely.
Right. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I get so many stares, even around Mississippi, because they're like, okay, who is this girl? And then with my mask that I have on.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh,
do we have that?
My mask?
I love this.
You love my mask?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, here you go. They're like, it's so futuristic.
It's like sunglasses, face shield sunglasses. Come on now.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like you're channeling like maybe some J-Lo, maybe a little bit of Yeezy here, you know. So.
You know, we set trends at Aloha Glamour. That is what we do.
I love it. So tell everybody what this is.
So that is a kukua nut lei.
Okay.
In Hawaii. It's customary for leis to be given for celebrations, births, graduations, whatever you're celebrating. You know, a lot of times when people land in Hawaii, they get laid with flowers. So you can either get laid with flowers or kukua nuts.
Okay, and these have sea turtles.
Yes, sea turtles. They are protected in Hawaii. You can't touch them, and they're so huge.
They're massive.
I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
I used to like to go to Haleiwa, early in the morning. You just see them laid out in the sun, in the dirt. I just loved it.
Rough life.
Yes, rough life.
I went diving out there one time, and there were 3 or 4 that kind of swam through, and I didn't know that you couldn't touch them. I didn't touch them. But from a distance, just to kind of move them so large and so majestically moving through the water, it was just it was an incredible experience.
Yes.
So it seems that what you're doing, you're creating this legacy, this remembrance through this passion of clothing and fashion that you have, and a great taste, I might add.
Thank you.
Right, and you're doing that in the name of Lauren. It's got some utility for you as well, because it kind of helps you process everything, right? But you're merging 2 things, as you said, your Black culture and then the culture of Hawaii. Do you want to talk more about that?
Sure.
So we talked about the Afrowaiian princess. What is it about being Black and being Hawaiian that merged together to create this beautiful, vibrant fashion?
Well, we all have, both of us have melanin in our skin. The Hawaiians, they love bright colors. Africans love bright colors.
I never thought about that.
Ohana. When you go to luau's in Hawaii, they call you Ohana, everybody's cousin. It's a sense of family. And even in the Black community, like, you come to my house, you're part of the family now. Like, we're cousins. So in those ways, we are alike.
Yes.
And they love to eat. We love to eat. Like, they have rice with everything. Like, you can go to McDonald's and get Spam and rice and eggs.
That's true. Yeah.
When I first saw that, I said, y'all got Spam and rice, but no sweet tea? Where they do that at? Hawaii.
Yeah. Spam on everything. Nice restaurant. Spam's on the menu.
Spam on the menu.
Yeah.
And look, don't let them say a hurricane coming. You go to Walmart, there's still bread, there's still milk, but they ain't no Spam.
None.
I'm talking about they got different types of Spam. Teriyaki Spam, lemon pepper Spam. Like, what?
I heard that was due to World War II.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so I could be wrong on this. This is just what I've heard. But I've heard that cheerleading gym. They're probably on the trampoline out there.
I had PTSD for a minute. I thought I was in a bunker. I was about to say, they shooting.
Or actually, it's probably the roll-up door. Anyway, so it was, I think it was because of the ration, because we, like, the U.S. invaded Hawaii, and Queen Liliuokalani, right? So she was the last queen of Hawaii, but when they displaced a lot of the Hawaiians, they were supplying them, and the cheap meat to give them at the time was Spam, and it was packaged in metal containers, and Hawaiians, as brilliant as they are, well, they found a way to make it a delicacy.
Yes, absolutely. I read this one article when Aloha Glamour kind of went viral. It came to the point where I had to Google Aloha Glamour like every single day to see if we showed up in some new article. They wrote about us in Hawaii, saying how we're appropriating the culture because we're not from Hawaii, but we have Aloha in our business name.
Hawaiians are very protective over their culture. Very, very protective. I will say from what I've seen is you've been very respectful about it. And not to get too far off on a topic like that, but I'm not sure that appropriation is the right word. I think we conflate appropriation and appreciation with it. There's a lot to love about that culture, and there's a lot of similarities, as you point out, between the culture, which I recognize now that you mentioned that. So an appreciation of that culture, I think, is what you're doing. You're combining them and saying, like, yes, they're distinctly different and they have their merits and value, but man, there's a path, there's a conduit between them, and you're creating that through your essentially artwork. But so let me tell you, you've started this successful business, right? And it's international. What makes it international? Maybe the supply, like you get, because you got product coming from Ghana, right?
Oh, yes. Gotta talk about my Guyanese Edison.
I played basketball with a guy from Ghana whenever I was at Travis.
Okay.
We played all the time. Aban was his name, but he was first generation. He was an aircraft mechanic in the Air Force with me. Great dude. Great ball player. But yeah. So what got you connected with Ghana?
So, at the beginning of the pandemic, I quickly pivoted my business to include African print masks.
Okay.
And including African and Hawaiian print masks, I felt like it was important to have a source from Africa.
Okay.
And somehow through Facebook, I got connected with Danny, and I just had them make me like 100 masks at a time. So they were sending the masks, I was keeping them busy, and the first update I got was, hey sis, we're now moved into a location. Look at the building because of, all the orders you have. Now we can work inside. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
That's
right?
incredible.
Right, but I'm not connecting it, the impact that I'm having. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. So I want to say about 4 months go by, and he was like, hey sis, can we hire some new seamstresses? And I'm like, why are you asking me? That's your business. And he was like, no, I didn't have a business before you started ordering masks.
So he thinks he works for you?
Yeah, he worked for me. Like, they put my picture up.
No kidding.
Yes, he did this whole video. Like, when they moved into their building, he did a video, and he was like, thank you, Aloha Glamour. And I was like, what? So when they put the picture up, he was like, yeah, you're our boss. And I'm like, okay. I got a fashion house in Ghana, Accra, Ghana. So we were able to hire 2 people. They were able to get new machines, and he just actually got a car. So he over there living life.
Oh, I have no doubt. Yeah, look at you.
Yeah, thank you. But he think I made out of money, because he'd be like, sis, I need this, and this. And I'd be like, where do you think this money coming from?
So you have a shop in Gulfport? Boutique? No? Are you purely online?
Purely online.
There you
now.
go. No overhead. I like that.
Well, I did buy me a she shed. And I primarily work out of my she shed. I call it my fulfillment center when I package my own order. Yes. But the journey, the reason why I go so hard in Aloha Glamour, because remember I talked about the Air Force and how they didn't know what to do with me while I was grieving. And going to mental health has always had a stigma in the military. Unfortunately. And I went to mental health, and the counselor was like, maybe you need to do PHP. And PHP is part-time hospitalization program. So instead of me going to work, I actually go to therapy throughout the day. But in order for that to happen, they needed the okay from my commander. So I got this new commander in. This is my first time meeting him. And he pulls me in, and he's like, Sergeant Williams, we got a request for you to go to PHP. Can you kind of tell me why they're recommending you to go to PHP? So I tell him that same story that I just told you that had us crying like we was made out of water. The first thing out of his mouth after I finished that was, why you looking like that?
Because I'm just worried it's going to be bad.
He looked at me and said, your baby was supposed to die.
He did not.
Yes, he did. In my mind, I had flipped over the table and choked him. But when I came back, I was just looking at him like...
That was it? There was no other context to that?
Yeah, that's it. He was like, your baby was supposed to die. I looked at the first sergeant. And at that point, I had checked out. Whatever he was saying, he was saying.
Oh, yeah, it's done.
Yeah,
there's no conversation after that.
So... he says, well, I'm going to allow you to go to PHP. Okay. So in allowing me to go, I had to be at PHP at 8. They wanted me to come to work from 6 to 8, which I didn't mind because I worked at 6 anyway. But they wanted me to come back after PHP to do work. And I'm like, well, PHP is supposed to take the place of work as I'm trying, to grieve or whatever. You know how we can automate our posts? So while I'm in PHP, my posts are automated, and my counselor in PHP says, well, your commander says that you're on Facebook all day, every day. I'm in PHP. How am I on Facebook?
So they're watching you on Facebook, and they see the post going out, and they say, oh, well, she's abusing this.
Yes.
So they formulate that opinion without actually asking about it and learning about nuances of Facebook.
Yes. So they wanted to take Aloha Glamour away from me more than once. And I ended up failing my PT test. This was the year after, Lauren. I failed my PT test because, of course, I'm depressed, I'm eating, and then I was just diagnosed with hypothyroidism on top of that. They give me a referral EPR. And after that referral EPR, it is what it is at this point.
For those who don't know, a referral EPR hurts your chances for promotion, advancement, opportunities, all those things. And to explain how difficult it is to get a referral EPR, it's written into the regulation. There's a line that says anything that could be perceived as derogatory has to be a referral EPR, which means there's a whole process for it. So if you put something that could be perceived as derogatory, then it becomes this negative thing, which means generally everybody has a very positive EPR. Even a middle performer that doesn't do a lot of things, the entire thing is mostly positive. So it's a big deal that somebody gives you a referral EPR.
So with that, because I worked in the orderly room, I also knew who else got referrals, right? There was another technical sergeant who failed her PT test. She did not get a referral.
Because there's also a line, I'm pretty sure at the time, that said something to the effect of like a failure of a PPR of a PT test does not automatically mean.
And I told them. But yeah, so that was just one of the things
Life's
that I've
trying you, Lexi.
Yes,
Life's trying you.
Let me tell you something. They were trying me. Like I believe that they were trying to give me a dishonorable discharge, because I even went to. Let me tell you. A year later, right? So with the referral, I couldn't test.
No, you can't.
So come next year, right? I done passed my PT test. I think I failed it again. But I go to, no, I didn't fail it. Long story short, I go to apply for TA.
Tuition's assistance.
Yes.
Which, are you on a control roster at this point?
I was, but they didn't tell me. So I didn't find out that they had put an unfavorable information file on me until I went to apply for tuition assistance. And I say, well, when did this happen, right? So I go to the first sergeant, I go to the chief. I didn't sign off on the documentation.
Yeah, that's true.
That they're notifying me that I'm on this. I go to the MPF because I am personnel. I just walk back there. Hey, let me see this UIF.
MPF is basically the HR center for the Air Force, yeah.
Right. I keep forgetting.
No. It's perfectly fine. I got you.
Okay, thank you, cousin. So I go to the MPF. I look at the document. Still no signature for me. Everybody else has signed off on it. Legal has signed off on it. The MPF has updated it. So I go into the superintendent's office and I'm like, hey, this is a training opportunity for you all. I didn't sign off on this. Why is this updated in the system, right? Went to legal, all the different agencies that they said were available to me. Everybody said, well, go back and talk to your commander to see if he'll take it off. So you're acknowledging that this shouldn't be updated, but you want me to go back to the man who said, well, your baby was supposed to die. And I explained this to my commander. Because, of course, the commander is telling the chief and everybody everything that I'm doing, right? But when I had a meeting with the commander and my psychologist, I requested that the chief, the first sergeant, and my supervisor was there. And I told them that story. And I said, sir, the first thing you said was, and he tried to clear it up. He was like, oh, you mean, no. I said, and you said something to me that has affected me since, we met. And he was like, oh, when I said how everything happens for a reason, and if you don't hit 25, you're not supposed to. I said, no, when you told me that my baby was supposed to die. And everybody was just like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that definitely shifts the allegiance in the room.
Right. Mm-hmm. So up until that point, they had no idea of, everything that had happened. They just know what he's telling them. But yeah, so at that point, I felt like the Air Force as a whole had failed me. And while
you're still trying to grieve.
While I'm still trying to grieve.
Still trying to grieve, still suffering all this loss, know? And then what should be kind of the bedrock, this job that is, pretty secure, seems to have a crumbling foundation as well. So everything around you seems to be falling apart, trying you, Right.
So for my mental health, I poured everything into Aloha Glamour. Mm-hmm. And when I started Aloha Glamour, I also started the Mississippi Gulf Coast Black-owned Business Network.
Tell me about it.
So I did that simultaneously because I felt like if I had this Afrowaiian business and I couldn't find my ideal client, then I'm pretty sure other Black business owners had this same problem. So I created this Facebook group, and we grew organically. We now have 6,800 Black-owned businesses and consumers, as well as non-African American participants, people, cousins in the group who are looking to support Black-owned businesses. Mm-hmm. So in starting that group, I also started doing the Mississippi Gulf Coast Black-owned Business Awards Gala, where I pay homage to the small business owners because we're not privy to the information of like the Sun Herald and the big awards that they do along the coast. So I say, what, I'll just honor us. And because I was getting paid through the Air Force, I had that extra money to fund these events.
Yeah.
And in doing all of this, I started getting recognized by the local community. Mm-hmm. They didn't even know I was in the military because I was doing so much in my community. And when I would tell like my supervisor, like I can't be here because I have to go to, or I need to take leave because I need to go to an awards banquet at like one of the casinos, they're like, why are you doing that? So then I send them the nominations and, the fact that I'm winning these awards, and they're like, well, why can't you do that in the Air Force? Well, I was doing that in the Air Force until,
better yet, let me explain something to you. I'm going to pour my heart and soul into things that recognize, acknowledge, or at least give me the benefit of the doubt of what I'm doing.
Right.
But I can't even come to you and tell you about these things that are going on with me that affect me and get any support from it.
None.
The real question is, why don't you do that in the Air Force? Well, why would you?
Why would I?
Why would you?
Y'all think I'm lazy? All I do is cry, and I'm using my grief as an excuse, is what I was told. Stop using that as an excuse.
But what you're actually doing is that grief was motivating you to transcend yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
So I ended up going through MEB.
Medical Evaluation Board?
Yes.
So in this, they're going to determine whether or not you're fit for duty, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
They determined that I was unfit for duty.
Okay.
And that I would be retired.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Some people get through that unfit for duty and they say, here's a small severance, get out of here. Mm-hmm. And you give away 17 years and don't get the pension and things of that nature. So
yes,
congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I hate that you had to take the path that you did to get there.
Right, because I was fighting it. I said, I can do 3 more years in my sleep. Mm-hmm. Right? Because it goes by so fast.
It does.
And I said, I kept fighting it and fighting it and fighting it. And as soon as I said, okay, God, obviously this is the path you want me to take, right? So I retired November 25th, 2019. January 2020, I had dressed my first celebrity. March was when the pandemic hit and I pivoted. So by April, I was featured in GQ, CNN, Allure,
and you just
Forbes.
won a big recognition here recently. What was that?
I did.
You texted. It may be hard to keep up with these.
Oh yeah, so I was accepted into the 10,000 Small Business Program by Goldman Sachs.
There you go. That's what it was.
Yes. So it's like here I was. trying to fight against God's will when all the signs were there that my time in the military was up, but I was trying to fight for a piece of check when not even 6 months after retiring, I've hit this level like that I didn't even see for myself. Like by April, I was over 6 figures. What? Like, I cried. I ain't never seen 6 figures like that. Not in real life. I mean,
right.
Lotto, but not in my bank account. Right? Honey.
I love it.
But yeah, I had to get out of my own way. And I think if people would get out of their own way.
God, I tell people this all the time. Man, I tell people this all the time.
Their potential is like unlimited. Wood ceiling. Break those glass ceilings. So yeah, just once I got out of my own way, it's...
Yeah, there's a book I read a while ago, and it's got a famous passage in it. It was in Coach Carter, where the kid stands up and he recites this beautiful thing, and it was like, it doesn't serve the world to play small. You know, we're all meant to shine as children of God. You know, that speech, I'd butcher it if I tried to say it, but yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I wrestled with an idea. I've got a philosophy background, so I like the idea of ideas, right? And it was, what if the entire idea of like the Christian religion was that we were the actual gods?
Yes.
And we were the... Okay, so this hits with you. Good.
Yes, because you know the Bible say we're created in His image.
Right, and so maybe these are just collections of stories about, you know, like Cain and Abel's a good one. It's the duality of the competing brothers, and maybe that's saying you need to be aware of this, and if you can transcend this and not fall victim to this, well, that's a step towards your self-divinity, you know, and the unlimited power that you have, because what is God? Well, He's omnipotent. He has unlimited potential. He's omniscient. He's everywhere.
Yep.
So are we.
Absolutely.
All the potential that exists in technology, we can go to the moon, we can do all this stuff. These were all our manifestations. So what if the idea is that the entire idea behind the Christian religion, at least, or the Abrahamic religions, Islam and Judaism, is that it's a story, a series of parables to say you are the God, right, as an individual, so long as you can master yourself.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you speaking my love language when you said that. Yes,
hey now.
indeed.
So now you're somebody who joined the Air Force, right? So you have this idea of service, and when you got into this position of despair or grief, if you will, your default was to work in the community.
Yes.
What is it about service to others that heals you?
I don't know. It just felt right. To be honest, like I say, surround your people or surround yourself where you're accepted and not tolerated. And my community was accepting me with open arms, even though I hadn't physically lived here in so long. Like when I initially came back, I actually felt like I had just PCS to a place I had like a new place.
This is how it felt when I got out of active duty. 100%. This what you're saying hits with me now.
Yeah, I'm like. So for them to open and accept me with open arms, for strangers to say, you know, that idea is crazy, but hey, I'm with you, right? That meant a lot to me. So I feel like the more you pour into others, like you have to be a blessing to get a blessing. And not that I'm being a blessing because I want something in return, but it just feels good. Do what feels good.
That's right. That's right.
What I do.
There's a philosopher named Ayn Rand who came from Russia in the early 20th century, and she had this idea of objectivism, and it's basically that doing things for yourself is a moral good. And so it's this idea, a lot of people package it as like a philosophy of selfishness, and I can work with that, sure. So if it feels good to make other people feel good, isn't that selfish in and of itself?
Is it?
I think so, because you're pursuing what makes you feel good. Mm-hmm. It just so happens that good thing
does something for that other person.
Does something for that other person,
see that
right?
Too.
See?
Yeah, I can see that.
So now I listened to an interview with you, and I forget the lady you did this interview with. I think it was like a Zoom or Skype one, and you mentioned that when you created this community of Black business owners, mm-hmm. right, that some people kind of viewed it as it wasn't
segregation.
Yeah, exactly. And you brought up a good point. You said it wasn't. You just want to make sure that they were included.
Absolutely.
In the conversation.
Yep.
Talk more about why you feel that way.
Well, in PCS and back to Mississippi and looking at the surrounding, I kind of, I compare to other mm-hmm. places that I've been stationed, like Virginia. The Black and white community, they work together. Mm-hmm. And when I got here, I still felt that there was like some separation when it comes to race mm-hmm. down here. It's like unspoken racism. Like, it's there. You just feel like it's there.
Like it's lingering. Like there's a mist about it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not overt.
Right.
Maybe it's in the shadows, deep down in places people don't like to talk about, right? Mm-hmm. But
in growing up in this environment, I felt like that nothing had changed. Mm. So when I started seeing the One Coast Awards and the different awards that they do here locally, and how most of the businesses that were being nominated were of non-African descent, mm-hmm. that made me think, like, either we don't have access to the information, or we don't feel like we can compete, or we're just not being nominated. So it was important for me to create the group and also include the word Black. Mm-hmm. So people feel comfortable. I know how to meet people where they are, so where they don't feel intimidated.
Right.
But I can still give you advice that's going to help, mm-hmm. Increase your business or whatever.
That's right.
So
that's right.
It was very important for me to use that word Black. And I always get, well, why you got to put Black in it? Mm-hmm. Because that's what I'm focusing on.
That's right. And so you say that part about maybe they can't compete, mm-hmm. and people might look at that, and let's look at that objectively and say, well, why? Well, maybe because the people that are competing are taking advantage of like generational wealth type things. Right. You know what I mean? So we should be celebrating these Black business owners who don't have the benefit, mm-hmm. right, that are doing some amazing things, right. and that will eventually do as well, if not better, than the people with the generational wealth, because we're in the phase now, getting rapidly into it, mm-hmm. where it's finally okay for people of color to build generational wealth.
Yes, it is.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I feel like, we don't have access to capital or the mentors or, like you said, the generational wealth, because nothing is really passed down to us but bills. And then we got to do fish fries to pay for the funeral. Mm. Not saying that we all do, but,
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. My dad was having, my dad and I have conversations, about the times, right? Mm-hmm. And my dad's a right-leaning guy, and he said it was really interesting. He said this past week. He said, it's wild out there. Like if you're somebody on the right side of the aisle, and I don't intend to make this a political conversation.
Yeah, that's fine.
There's a point to this. He's like, it's people like on the right side of the aisle. They're having to tell their kids, hey, look, your voice is not the same. Mm-hmm. Like you can't say the things that you want to say out there. And I said, Dad, there's people in this country of color that are having that conversation today. Have been for 70 years. And he said, or more, and he said, and he was leaning over when he said that, because we were out in public eating, and he leans back like this and he goes, never thought about that. Mm-hmm.
It's all about the mindset.
Yeah, that's right. But maybe kind of changing that, having that discussion might help reframe people, as well. I've got a funny story.
Okay.
I think it's kind of funny, but I tell people all the time, I don't know what the racism feels like. I don't. There's a couple things that have hit with me, like when Obama, after the tragedy of Trayvon Martin, he said, I know what it's like to walk through a parking lot and hear doors lock. Mm-hmm. And this was a constitutional professor, so that hit with me. Mm-hmm. And having conversations like that, like this is what happened, that should be a nuanced thing. I'm just walking through a damn parking lot.
Right.
And I hear that, but I grew up playing basketball around here, and oftentimes I was the lone white guy, But a common thing, even walking into a gym, like I'm playing ball at Keith's for 25 years.
But can you jump though?
Look, I can play. Look. My nicknames are knockdown, bell bottoms. Okay,
come through with the three.
Listen. I tell people, look, you guard me at the door. Okay. When I walk in the gym, anywhere you see wood grain's my range.
Okay. You break an ankle. Okay,
but look, so this is a situation that I've run into many times, right? But you walk in, there's games going, there's 4 people on the side, right? I'll walk in, white guy, find out who has the next game. Like, hey, can I run with you? Mm-hmm. He does this, like, no, I'm good. I'm going to wait for somebody. Okay. Now look, got it. Okay. Now when they get on the court, right? I've got the next game. Mm-hmm. I pick up 4 people. I'm rooting for his team.
Mm-hmm.
And
so y'all can play each other.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And my goal is to destroy that, because that pissed me off.
Yeah.
Because you judge me immediately right there.
Based off the color of your skin.
And I'm going to show you how badly you got that wrong. And I'm going to make it hurt.
Right.
Now I can package that feeling up and say, that's nothing. That's a game. Mm-hmm. But it made me work harder and it made me angry.
Yeah.
So if that's something like what it feels like, I don't want anybody to have to go through that.
Yeah.
And that's, again, it's nothing. It's meaningless.
Right.
But when you're a black business owner, mm-hmm. creating a community for people of color, right, because you felt that.
Right.
How do you think you channeling that into helping other people is helping the Gulf Coast become more diverse?
That's a great question.
Well, we could talk through it again. It's kind of a tough question, honestly.
So for me,
because you're doing it out of like what you feel like it's good to do, and maybe you haven't thought long term, like, what is this going to do? Because you're just doing it day by day. Like, I feel like I should do this. It's a good thing.
Right, and I feel like we have the people here to make the Gulf Coast what it should be, mm-hmm. a big tourism spot, mm-hmm. right?
A very diverse tourism spot, yeah, for sure.
Bring back the cruise ships, like have not a green book, the green book that they used to have, but have options for people to choose from.
Well, and to be fair, I mean, the Gulf Coast is the most diverse part of the state. There's pockets of it around Jackson and mm-hmm. Madison, and man, there's places in North Mississippi. Look, I wear team colors and I wouldn't go. You dig?
Okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, the Gulf Coast is such a beautiful and diverse place. But again, it's not as diverse as it could be because it still carries the trappings of the history of Mississippi.
Right. And New Orleans is right there.
Oh yeah.
Why can't we be culturally a cultural melting pot?
I think we're getting there, and I think you're somebody that's a part of that transformation. That's a big part of that. I mean, I don't think like you're winning all these awards. At some point, you got to settle down and say, like, look, I've got real impact here.
So that's funny because last week Beyoncé posted me on her website.
Stop now.
Listen, no, that was this week. So Tuesday.
How many times does this happen where you can't keep up with Beyonce reposting it?
Listen, I woke up Tuesday and I'm just like, so I won the NAACP Bey-good grant. So NAACP and Beyonce got together to, pour into small black businesses. And I posted it on Facebook. Tuesday was my day. Like, okay, Beyonce ain't post you. Beyonce posted me. So on Wednesday, I meet with my PR and marketing person, Pamela Johnson of Yellow Rabbit PR and Marketing.
Okay.
And she was like, we making money today? I said, of course we making money today. She was like, are you still basking in the whole Beyonce thing? I said, no. She said, why? Girl, Beyonce posted you yesterday. I said, I got work to do.
Hey.
Like, I was happy yesterday, but now it's time to get back to work. So with all of these accolades and acknowledgments, like, yes, I love that y'all want to acknowledge me, right? But I'm doing this for them, not so much me. And while I was in the military, I found myself being guilty for winning the awards because they're recognizing me for Aloha Glamour, but I have Aloha Glamour because I lost my daughter. So can I really bask in the, the congratulations and, oh my gosh, this is so great, when the whole story behind the business is because of a loss? So I dealt with that a lot, like the guilt of saying, oh, Aloha Glamour has this award, but why do we have Aloha Glamour? Right? So,
well, but to be fair, again, it's allowed you to be put in a position to be a voice for many people. You've created, like, upward mobility for people in Ghana.
Oh, yeah.
And you work in Nigeria as well, right?
Yes, so I have bags that come out of Nigeria and Kenya.
Okay.
Yeah, so I work in many different sales in Africa, but my direct contribution is in Ghana.
Well, still, you're giving economic impact in those areas. I mean, many people will win a business award and it only affects their county.
That's true.
Like, you're doing big things here, but does it feel like you're doing things as big as you are? Because it feels like you've done all these things. You talk about a bank account with six figures, right? But from the first text I had with you, I mean, the memes we share back and forth, like, you're just like...
I'm just me.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, so how do you deal with it? I mean,
listen...
Does it feel undeserving? Like,
yeah, because I feel like, I'm just pouring back into my community. Like, this is what I want to do. Like, I can be at the mall and somebody be like, I know you. You're Alexis. And I'm like, girl, if you don't calm that down, I could never be a celebrity. I wouldn't know how to, it makes
You're
my
already
anxiety.
one.
It makes my anxiety bad. So, like, I just like to do what's right for the community, for the greater good.
Well, I think you're doing a fantastic job.
Mahalo. Gotta throw that Hawaiian word in there. That's all I know. Aloha, mahalo.
So what's new for the business? Where are y'all going?
So they asked me that question when I got accepted into Goldman Sachs. And like I said, I believe in visions, right? I was asleep. I think it was like midnight. And I woke up, I said, oh my gosh, I need a vending machine. And within 5 hours, I had already had a vending machine being made. Like, I don't think out the concept. I just say, God gave me this vision, so I got to go with it.
A vending machine for what?
For my fashion. So it's going to be a fashion box. I have the machine. I got the machine. It's here.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And it's going on Keesler. But I'm not, the back office piece, that's not me. Like, I'm the creator. So the reason why my machine hasn't launched is because I can't get my two back offices to connect. And I'm like, I don't have time for this. Like, I need to hire somebody who know how to hook the
Yeah.
I'm a creator, right? I create. When it comes to the
you need the fixer. You need the advancer, the
Where's
fixer.
Olivia Pope when I need her? So I have a vending machine. And then we talk about favor. Favor ain't fair, right? So for the B.O.B., I haven't even released this yet, but for the B.O.B., I just leased a 9,000 square foot building for us.
Okay.
That is in Gulfport. It's going to be in Gulfport, and it's going to be a co-working space. But once a month, I would host melanin villages, Where
what is that?
Melanin Village is when business owners, they can set up to sell their products and goods and services to the local community. We were doing it outside at the 34th Street Holistic Garden, but then the rain and then it got cold. So when this building became available, everybody was like tagging me in it because I have been asking, I have been putting it in an atmosphere like we need a building, we need a building, we need a building. And so when this building started being shared on Facebook, they were tagging me. And I ended up contacting the young lady who was showing the space. And when I went to look, I was like, oh my God, this space has just been sitting here and I just don't know, I don't know. And she was like, okay. So she tells her boss, Ben, who's in Tennessee, and my right hand, she was with me, and she mentioned the Black Owned Business Group. And I'm also the director of the African American Chamber of Commerce that I'm going to be rolling out either the end of quarter one.
You got a lot of hats under that hat.
I do. So when Ben heard that, he sent her a message. She was like, look, I Googled her. I need her in this building, whatever she needs to get in this building. And I'm like, this is huge for me. I'm usually not scared, but this is really causing me some anxiety. But long story short, Ben ended up getting me into the building. He was like, I believe in everything that you're doing, and he's not even from here. So sometimes I feel like there are a lot of gatekeepers here locally, and I'm having to reinvent a lot of stuff because people
there could be some of that, yeah.
Because people don't want to give me the information when all I'm trying to do is, bring a positive light to the Mississippi Gulf Coast. I tell people, if I make it, y'all gonna make it, period.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
So why hold me back into helping us move forward?
I would say when I think of what you said there about being local gatekeepers, I would say that that's likely because you see things that are gaining traction, like your group. Also, there's a segment that the Sun Herald started. It was
Color of the Coast.
Color of the Coast.
Yeah, she contacted me.
Brittany Davis, right?
Yeah, she
Brittany
said, I want to
Davis,
start
yeah.
this, Lexi. And
shout out to Brittany.
Shout out to Brittany. That's my girl. Yeah. And that's interesting that you bring that up, because when people want to start something, or if it has something to do with diversity, or a company wants to do something with diversity or get information out, they call me. And I'm like, why are y'all calling me? Right? And it dawned on me that they want access to the network. They want the 6,800 people that, they want to give this information to the 6,800 people that are in this group, even though it's a Facebook group. If Facebook go away, the group goes away. Yeah. So I just find that interesting. Like, I just had a bank reach out to me and was like, hey, PPP loans, and we really want to get into your group so we can do like a segment. And I'm like, okay, like it's getting to the point where I feel like I need an assistant, but I ain't got no money to pay no assistant, so they just gonna have to be doing it on GP, because them 6 figures gone. Damn, my vending machine. And which I feel like, because I took off so quickly, like I didn't have the foundation of business, because I didn't start the business to have a business. I started it for my mental health. It
was an outlet, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
So I find myself doing things backwards. Like when I had the money, what was I supposed to do with it?
Yeah.
Me being me, I put it right back into the business and put it into product.
Yeah.
So it's like I made all of this money. I have nothing. I say I have nothing to show for it, but when in all actuality, it's my inventory. It's not my inventory, right? I just need to get it out.
That's right.
But if I had like the foundations of a business, like you need a CPA, you need, this is what you need. I felt like I could have utilized the exposure and the funds in a totally different way had I had the right people. Well, I ain't had I had a team.
Right. Well, I'd say also, and I think this problem is endemic across all demographics, but like we don't do a good job of like teaching about money to younger people, and unless you come from a family that has had success with money, which if you're a person of color, it's least likely that that's the case. You know, like you don't. you could have the same amount of money with two people and say they have the same opportunity. They don't have the cognitive background to say, this is how I invest this money. Mm-hmm. I need to get the LLC. I need to get the articles of incorporation. I need to get all these things, you know? You don't have that background. It's a disadvantage.
Right. So, but the good news is I did set up my business correctly. It was just, the cash flow.
Sure.
And in starting a group, I understand that a lot of people don't set up their businesses correctly. So it is my desire to do like a Black-owned Business Academy where we go through the foundations. Because there's people who've been in business for 30 years but don't have an LLC and they ain't,
sure.
You know what I'm saying?
All that risk associated with that too, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I definitely want to set us up.
I think Kevin Hart teamed up with Chase Bank for something similar like that.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, that's primarily working with minority communities to kind of give that educational piece to them. But he talked about it on a podcast that he was doing. I think it was it might have been the Joe Rogan podcast, but anyway, I think it might be him and Jamie Foxx. I could be wrong in the Jamie Foxx piece, but he's got another partner. Mm-hmm. But it's obviously needed. But so, are you in the works for that, or is it just like kind of a vision thing that got to get some more organization around?
Yeah, all of that.
Okay.
Like I be working on 18 things at once. Like I have so many tabs open.
Interesting. probably literally, but that could be a funny metaphor too. Like, man, I got so many tabs open up
really
here,
do. Because with all of these businesses, like I still have to be a parent. I still got to be a daughter, a granddaughter. My grandma's getting older, and I just love to spend time with her. Like she is so funny. You don't realize how funny and petty your grandparents are until you get older. And you be like, you've been like this your whole life.
The whole time.
You invented petty. Oh, she's so petty.
I love how grandmothers can talk trash about people.
Okay.
And especially right in front of them. Right. It's so good.
Granny, make me push you. Make me push you down. But yeah, it's so they don't care.
Yeah.
Like, what you gonna do to me?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, they deserve it. They've
been through a
on
lot.
this. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
They're definitely a protected class. But Lexi, look, we've been talking for about 2 hours now.
Have?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, real deal here. I think I get the actual time here. Let's see. I think we're at. Yeah. Well. Yeah, close to it. So, anyway, in any case, where can people learn more about you?
Well, if you want to learn more about me, you can follow me on Instagram at Aloha Glamour. That is ALOHAGLAMOUR.
Okay.
That's my name on Facebook as well. On Twitter, I'm Aloha Glamour 1. My website is alohaglamour.shop. And I also have a blog on there as well.
Okay, and they can purchase on there?
Yeah.
As well? Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent. Lexi, I've had such a blast talking with you. We got to do this again.
Absolutely. We can call it the Cookies and Cream Podcast.
Come on now.
Or
are we talking or are we talking?
We talking. Okay.
We'll get it set up in your building. You carve out a room right there. We'll start a podcast.
That'll be dope.
Yeah, well.
I wanted to do a podcast called The Girl in the Skirt where I share stories from.
I'll be the skirt.
Oh, you can't be
Just kidding.
Oh my God.
I'm just kidding. But Lexi, look, it's been a blast. Thank you for coming on here and sharing your story and your passion. You've channeled loss and tragedy in a beautiful way. And I have no doubt that it's, a continual process, but the legacy for Lauren might be one that she continues to live on. Mm-hmm. She's an inspiration of color and beauty, and she's given you an avenue to affect what is her community as well.
That's true. That's so dope.
So, thank you for sharing with me.
Thank you
I love
for
you.
having
You've
me.
been fantastic.
I love you too.
Everybody, thank you. Y'all have a good one. See ya.
Mahalo.
Mahalo.
You should get your listeners to write in and we can answer their questions.